I've had a lot of comments saying they just took a new truck chassis, shortened it.
So it's easy to look at it and discredit it.
Why would you put an independent front suspension on a four-wheel drive truck?
It's sticker shock, sure.
I guess to address a lot of the questions, yes, it is expensive.
Absolutely no comparison to these two vehicles. Never changed a ball joint on it, never changed any bushings on it. A whole bunch of crap at Crate and Barrel, like you can pick it up.
And use that to justify it to your wife.
I'm Jeremy Gerber, co-owner of the Roadster Shop. I'm here with my brother Phil, also co-owner of the Roadster Shop. And we're standing in between two chassis that are very similar, but incredibly different. We've had a lot of questions about our Legend Series chassis, questions about the IFS, why we chose the IFS, the price point on the chassis, what all comes in the package. Sitting next to Phil here is a complete package the way that one would go out the door. And it's actually the replacement chassis for an original 78 K5 Blazer. We'll walk you through, I guess, some of the highlights of what's good and what's bad.
Perfect before and after example of two trucks. This Blazer here came in as a completed, restored, running, driving vehicle that the customer bought, loved the look, loved the stance, loved the nostalgic four-wheel drive, everything in his mind that he had made it out to be until he drove it.
Had the right lift kit, the right tires. At a glance, just killer. I mean, great restoration on it, really had the look, but the customer got in it and basically useless for, you know, I think that that in itself answers like why the Legend chassis, because this was probably a $50,000, $60,000 full-blown restoration with all the upgrades you would do to an original chassis. And basically, I mean, some people will argue that point, but basically it's useless. It's my opinion, not a pleasurable experience to drive this. Love the look of it. I've always wanted one myself, but jumping in it, thought it would be cool to take it out, spin around the block, something we always do in these vehicles before we blow them apart. Thought I'd enjoy the 4-speed, you know, pretty cool. Got that granny gear, you can kind of crawl in it and all that, but I don't know if I'm losing my touch or driving too much modern stuff, but this was not a pleasurable experience to drive.
Yeah, the 4-speed's cool if you're doing a performance car, I think, or getting more hardcore and off-road, but for a truck that you're trying to daily drive, cruise around town, I think you want the automatic. I mean, I love a manual in any muscle car that we build, but after driving our Legends truck and the few others that we've completed, I would 100% only go that 8-speed automatic.
Absolutely, yeah, it's got its place. Great in a muscle car. Certain applications are great for a manual, but that 8-speed trans is a game changer. It's just something you're really going to drive and use.
The issues are the things that leave you wanting more on the original truck. I think kind of the first thing that jumped out to me, the steering on them. It is a old school steering box.
Yep.
Works for going down the road, but all kinds of slop. You don't feel very connected. You're moving the wheel back and forth. The truck's still going straight. You don't feel that connection to it. Can be a little hairy at times, and
it can be very hairy at times. And anything that has a steering stabilizer that looks like that on it, that isn't like an 80s show truck, you kind of know that it's probably not going to drive real good, and certainly not going to steer real good. And putting a gas, you know, no-name gas shock in it to try to correct that, typically a Band-Aid that doesn't do anything, but you can option it out with the very cool color-coded shock boots, the dust boots. So
yeah, I probably would have matched it to the red on the truck and not gone yellow in this case.
I would. I'd have probably put 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 shocks on it. You know,
yeah.
You get the look.
It's a Silver Lake, Michigan.
That's
there.
it.
4 of them on
Bigfoot set the trends. I mean, back in the day. But it all jokes aside, it doesn't do anything well. It's a harsh ride. If you really look at the steering geometry on paper, I mean, it really shouldn't work. It does. You know, it steers. It doesn't have crazy bump steer, but you get some feedback in the wheel, wanders all over the road. I mean,
steering, front suspension, you got leaf springs in the front, no tunability. It kind of is what it is, and you're going to get a much stiffer ride out of it than, you know, an adjustable coilover suspension. Solid axle in the front versus our independent front suspension. I think that's a huge riff that we've been seeing on Instagram on why would you put an independent front suspension on a 4-wheel drive truck. I think the short, easy answer is because of this right here. And because every OEM manufacturer has changed to an independent front suspension, because the benefits are insanely better than what you can get out of a solid axle for regular drivability, ride quality, steering, handling, and what you're going to use this truck for 95% of the time. Will a straight axle be great for off-road, hardcore bulletproof? Absolutely. If that's the truck you're building and that's what you intend to do on it, We've got an RS4 chassis that has a Dana 44 front, Dana 60 rear, that's built for more of the hardcore, aggressive off-road stuff. Something like our Legends chassis here is really designed to be a daily driver. As you know, as much as everybody says that in our industry, this is something that can legitimately be driven 365 days a year.
Yeah, the solid axe, that's something that it seems to be like the hang up on these, right?
Yeah.
And like, I'll never argue that a IFS is a better option if you're gonna build a rock crawler. You know, if you're gonna be building like I don't know, a fucking mud bog truck or something that's like very high performance, dedicated use to doing something super hardcore off-road, yeah, that's great, right? But that doesn't mean you want to put it on the highway. Absolutely no comparison to these two vehicles. Visually, like, look at it, you know, just look at the geometry. You've got 60 years of suspension development. You've got awesome Fox factory series shocks, coilovers on the front of it, big sway bars, rack and pinion steering. Yeah, the rack and pinion in itself, huge difference.
Night and day on the steering feel and input, just what you feel going down the road. You know, when designing this chassis, one of the big things we looked at is the durability, the reliability, and the serviceability to keep this thing going for many years down the road. So we looked at a lot of options and we landed on 2017 Silverado 1500. Complete front suspension, upper control arms, lower control arms, steering rack, spindles, and brakes. It's a bulletproof package that GM's designing these things to go 200,000 miles before you need to even look at them.
Yep.
A truck like this will probably never see that kind of mileage, but it's something
I hope it does, but you're right, it probably won't.
You can find parts for it at any auto parts store across the country. They're probably in stock at any place you could possibly go to.
Yep.
We have several of these trucks. We've got the white one out front. It's got 167,000 miles on it. The white one you're driving's got 150,000 miles on it. Just a ton of experience behind the wheel in them, used them, abused them, and they just last.
It does. Yeah, that's a prime example. That's a 2011 truck, 160,000 plus miles. I'm not like a real big maintenance guy when it comes to daily drivers.
You wait till something falls off, and that's what you got to replace.
Right. I mean, never changed a ball joint on it, never changed any bushings on it, never changed a shock on it, never a sway bar bushing, nothing. You know, they just...
Bunch of tires, brake pads, and oil.
You just really can't beat GM's durability. I mean, any of the OE's durability, the amount of development that they put into something just like a bushing, you know, or a ball joint, for example. The aftermarket really can't compete with that. We do our best. Everybody tries to bring the best product to market, but the OE's, their product development, it's far superior. So if you can use it and integrate it, by all means.
You got hundreds of millions of dollars of engineering behind it, and it's tough to compete with that. Specific application, there are ways to improve what the OEMs have done, but for something that's going to see the majority of its life driving down the road and being used, there's no better option.
Tremendous amount of time, tremendous amount of engineering. And it's funny because a lot of people look at it and it almost looks so simple when it's done, and I think that's a sign that it was well executed.
Yep.
It looks very factory, even outside of the factory components. Everything kind of blends seamlessly. So it's easy to look at it and discredit it, that it's a new truck chassis.
Yeah. I've had a lot of comments saying they just took a new truck chassis, shortened it, and put an old truck on it. It's a great compliment on one hand, but
sure,
once you dive into it and see all the detail, see how everything was engineered, see how it was all built to go together, combine the old and the new, I think it's probably one of our best engineering feats to date.
It absolutely is. There's so many things that went into this project that just sitting here looking at it, I mean, every little billet bulkhead that adapts all the factory fittings, whether it be an AC manifold or power steering fitting. You just look at the motor placement and the way the motor's offset and positioned to the firewall, factory isolated kind of donut style mounts to take any of the NVH out of it, the way that the pan just so neatly wraps around that factory diff, the oil drain back that's integrated, a little billet machine part so we can tie it into the factory serpentine system. The engineering goes so far beyond just the chassis and the suspension, really into the whole package, all the mechanicals of it, the cooling system, the serpentine drive, what's not OE on it. Vehicles of this era, they came with electric power steering. Electric power steering is not really supported by the aftermarket, so we chose to use a little earlier GM steering rack, copied those ratios, so crank to power steering pump ratio, manufacture our own power steering pump bracket, incorporate that into the GM factory serpentine drive for an overall very OE product.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the big things when people look at it and they ask, well, I'm just going to buy the frame and I want to put an LS in it and I want to do a 4L80 or whatever everybody else is used to doing in the hot rod industry. It's always been kind of a choose your own adventure.
Right.
And you can't build a complete package for a specific vehicle because of that, because everybody wants something different. So I think when we did this, we kind of took a different approach to it.
We finally said no.
We finally said no, yes. So much better in a more engineered package where everything plays off the next component and it's designed to work together, from the trans and transfer case, the electronic system that we built to work with the shift on the fly front differential, make all of that talk to each other, engine harness that runs the PWM fans, factory fuel tank and evap system on it. Every single piece on it is designed to work with the next one and give the customer just a phenomenally better product than what the hot rod industry is used to.
Yeah, on something like this, if you buy a rolling package, it's proven, all the components are proven. So you can really put a truck together, have it out on the road. And for a shop, there's great value in that, where that's typically where projects tend to kind of cut into profits that a shop may make, is on the tail end of that. When that truck hits the road and you think it's done, the customer thinks it's done, but there might be 100 hours of troubleshooting, 100 hours, of yanking these parts off and swapping these parts. A power steering pump goes bad, a radiator tank cracks, some sort of electrical system doesn't kick the fans on when they need to be kicked on. You're trying to figure out why the AC compressor is not sending a signal to the fans. There's just so many things, and all that stuff's figured into it.
And they can kind of focus their time and effort on making the truck cool, focusing on the body, the paint, the interior, the details that really set it apart, and have a bulletproof platform underneath it.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of excited about, bringing these out to market, to get them under some vehicles and free up the budget for builders. People think that these are really expensive, but I think builders look at them and really see the value. So for a customer that's willing to make the investment in a really high-end vehicle, he's getting in at a pretty reasonable price point, and that gives the builder, like you said, the opportunity to cut the dash out of the truck and build something from scratch, machine the gauge bezel, do whatever, get crazy with it, do something really neat. So I hope that there's a lot of really cool vehicles built on these, because there's great builders out there, tremendous amount of interest. So
I guess to address a lot of the questions, yes, it is expensive. You're buying half of a high-end build in one shot. You're getting an incredible value for what's here. You're gonna spend this much or more piecing out the individual components if you were to try to spec your own motor and spec your own front drive and your own transmission and your own radiator and your own radiator hoses and your own fuel system. We've done all that. We've put the engineering together, and we're able to cut out a ton of the labor and assembly time by having everything kind of packaged together here.
It's sticker shock, sure, because you're grouping it all together. I don't think people are used to seeing a package where there is so much there ready to go. So if you really sat down and kind of priced it out, I think you'd be shocked. And a good example would be like, look at what this would cost you to build. This is really loaded up with pretty much a lot of the aftermarket goodies, I would say.
Yeah.
So if you dissect this, and this chassis, the way it sits, will probably sell to somebody that's wanting to build a vehicle. They might have a clean Blazer and they want to drop it on. Somebody would pay 25, 30 grand for this rolling chassis the way you see it. But if you break that down, GM 350 crate motor. I mean, it's been a while since I bought a small block Chevy crate motor.
Probably 7 grand, 8 grand, $2,000 for a serpentine drive, 2 grand for a trans. I don't know what a transfer case goes for. Aluminum radiator, electric fan, you're another 2 grand, 2,500 bucks.
Yep. Upgrade the axles, another 4,000.
Yep.
So I hope somebody's doing the math, because this is adding up.
We'll do one of those little counters at the bottom.
Yeah. Bolt the shocks on it.
Yeah, those shocks are only like $29.
All right, yeah, so the shocks you got off easy. Get off easy on the shocks. Drive shafts, wheels, tires. It's all has to be purchased. Sure, these are higher end items, but this stuff comes at a cost, and then there's labor involved. So break this chassis down, whether you want to pour 15 it or powder coat it, reassemble it. What's the cost of your labor? How much time do you have? That in itself could be $5,000 to $10,000 of a guy's labor. Value your time, value your labor, and add all that up, you've got a fairly expensive package sitting right here. So yeah, the guy who's looking at this and thinks it should be 7,500 bucks, I can't justify it to you. I'm sorry, the motor costs more than that,
For the guys that are, on the internet saying you can buy a brand new truck for this kind of money, or there's so many other things you could buy, go ahead and buy those. Go buy a new truck. This is definitely not for everybody. At the same token, if you're buying a brand new truck, somebody's looking at that and say they could buy an old S10 for 1,500 bucks and drive it, why are you spending 60, 70 grand on a new truck?
Yeah. At 60, 70 grand, like it's hard to find a truck nowadays for that. I mean, if you want to really option something out, something that's high performance, I mean, look, it's 650 horsepower supercharged motor. So with all the bells and whistles, the Fox shocks and everything, you're getting up there into like, you know, Raptor TRX territory. You're $100,000 vehicles right there.
Yep.
And yeah, sure, like for me, I own a new Chevy truck. It's a 3500 quad cab. I use it for pulling a gooseneck trailer. But what I own and drive is one of these because it's super badass. It's a phenomenal truck to drive. I love the short wheelbase. I love the turning radius. I love that I can use it to do anything that I want to do, and I can lend it to anybody to drive. I'm never concerned with taking it anywhere.
I'm concerned when you let your wife drive it. I've seen that a few times.
Yeah.
It's a little.
It's so not a hot rod, but yet it's a hot rod at the same time. And that's what I really, really dig about it. Like some people just don't have that pickup truck in their collection. So you want to go pick up the Christmas tree, You want to go grab some lumber, Wife
You still have a hot rod.
Yeah, you still got a hot rod. Wife buys a whole bunch of crap at Crate and Barrel, like you pick it up. You ever seen the people trying to stuff like a 70-inch TV in the back of like, you know,
or something?
yeah, they're trying to wedge it in. Dude,
Take
right,
your Legend
right
truck.
in the back of that. Yeah, so it does, you know, it does serve a purpose as a second vehicle like in the household. So, and it's a hot rod.
You can use that to justify it to your wife.
Legend trucks are getting more and more popular, and we're getting a lot of inquiries for a variety of models. Now, currently we're keeping it all in the Chevy lineup.
Available for all the short bed trucks and all the Blazers from 73 to 91.
Long bed pickup truck hasn't really been super popular as of yet, so we'll kind of wait and see if the market says that they want it and there's enough volume there, we'll do it. We've got Suburban, actually square body Suburban. That one's coming down the pipeline. So we've got a great donor vehicle in to be scanned, and probably sometime this summer, that one will be going into production.
We've got for the early 69 to 72 Blazers, and then coming out next for the 67 to 72 K10, C10s.
Yep. Yeah, those are kind of the outliers. We weren't originally looking at those early models, but they seem to lend themselves really well to this track width, to these ride heights, and the way that this front suspension packages. So I think that early K5 Blazer is going to be pretty popular. Have a few going together right now.
They're again going to be limited just because of the amount of engineering that goes into building the complete package. We're really only offering them as a chassis with motor, transfer case, drive shafts, your exhaust system, your fuel system, fuel ventilation system, and kind of giving the customer the complete package that way. They're available with the LT4 650 horsepower supercharged motor or the LT1 450 horse naturally aspirated motor. From there, we have a few options to kind of take it to the next level. Complete core support with cooling module. It is a 100% bolt-in core support, takes all your factory components and takes the 2017 Silverado radiator and cooling stack. Our 17-inch billet original style wheels to take a factory center cap.
We spent a great deal of time working with Billet Specialties to develop this wheel. They had some stuff in the works that was very similar, but we were very focused on being able to package the smallest wheel diameter over that factory disc brake kit. The one thing that I will say that is super cool about this old truck, small wheels, big sidewalls. Maybe it's because we're from the Midwest, but if it's four-wheel drive, I just can't get down with the
20s and 22s and
right.
Little rubber band tires.
So being able to get a 17-inch wheel with that tire, plenty of sidewall, and we're able to package that on just about every one of these models.
And we offer a powder coating package where we'll powder coat, final assemble everything. Honestly, it's probably the best option that you should get on every one of these chassis for you to get it, disassemble everything, powder coat it, put it back together. A lot of work for the home builder, anybody doing it after the fact.
Unless you're looking for a great father and son project, you know, and something in the garage, I'd recommend powder coat it, get it fully assembled. It's something that we've got a tremendous amount of experience at, very efficient at, way ahead of the game.
And then for the guys that want to do some towing with a small trailer, maybe you got some UTV, a couple dirt bikes, we offer a hitch package for the back that bolts on and then has a set of helper bags with an onboard compressor so you can increase the spring rate in the rear when you're towing something a little bit heavier. If you're interested in finding out more about the Legends chassis and all that we offer, jump on our website, look at the chassis section, look at the build galleries of the trucks we've got going on right now. or call one of our sales guys and they can walk you through a chassis quote and build.
And if you're watching this video, you're probably already catching it on YouTube. Plenty of footage on our Orange Blossom Special truck. A lot of good stuff of our prototype truck that you can see in action. So check out the trucks. If you dig it, call the sales team.